Fort Bragg, North Carolina, 05:30 a.m. The base gym was already thick with the smell of sweat and iron. Captain Freya Bergström stood behind the bench press, her massive hands hovering near the barbell as Private Therese struggled through his fifth rep. She was impossible to miss. 6'3", 210 pounds, shoulders that filled doorways, arms that looked like they'd been carved from granite. "Come on, Therese," she said quietly. "Two more. You've got this." From across the gym, laughter erupted. Did they run out of men, or did they hire a circus strong woman? More laughter. Freya didn't turn, didn't react, just kept her eyes on Therese. But what they didn't know, what nobody at Fort Bragg knew, was that the woman they were mocking had once held up 8,000 pounds of burning metal while her teammates bled out beneath it. And today, 18 months of silence was about to end. For a year and a half, Freya had been invisible. Not because of her size, you couldn't hide 6'3", but because people saw what they wanted to see. A woman too big, too masculine, too wrong. "Freaking Amazon," they whispered. "Probably on steroids," others said. "Diversity hire," Lieutenant Marcus Kaine had announced during a briefing, loud enough for everyone to hear. "They're so desperate to hit quotas, they'll take anyone." Freya never responded, never defended herself. She just showed up every morning at 05:30, trained whoever walked through those doors, and disappeared into the background. But there were details people missed. The way she moved, economical, tactical, like someone who'd learned that wasted motion could mean wasted lives. The scars on her knuckles, the faded tan line on her ring finger where a wedding band used to sit, the small notation on her workout clipboard, "Reps for the fallen, 8." And the tattoo, hidden beneath her tank top along her left rib cage, a Viking rune surrounded by the words Odin 6, Kandahar, 2018. Nobody asked about it. Nobody looked that close. Lieutenant Marcus Kaine walked into the gym that Tuesday morning like he owned it. 28 years old, Ranger School graduate, chest full of ribbons he'd earned in 2 deployments, and an ego that had never been properly checked. He spotted Freya immediately and made a beeline for her station. "Hey, Bergström," he called out loud enough for the entire gym to hear. "I've got a question." Freya set down the weight she was racking. "Yes, sir?" "How much can you actually lift? I mean, realistically, not some inflated number you tell yourself to feel better about, all this." He gestured vaguely at her body. The gym went quiet. Everyone stopped mid-rep. Freya looked at him with eyes the color of glacial ice. "I lift what needs to be lifted, sir." "That's not an answer. Come on, bench press, right now. Let's see what you've got." "I'm on duty, sir." "That's an order, Captain." He emphasized her rank, just enough sarcasm to make it an insult. "Unless you're scared." Freya wiped her hands on her towel, walked to the bench, loaded the bar. 245 plates on each side, 315 pounds. She lay down, lifted it. 10 clean reps, didn't even breathe hard. Kaine's smirk faltered. "Okay, not bad for a woman." Freya sat up. "Anything else, sir?" "Yeah, one more thing." He leaned in close, his voice dropping, but still audible to everyone nearby. "You're not a soldier, Bergström. You're a freak of nature, a science experiment gone wrong, and everyone here knows it." For the first time in 18 months, something flickered in Freya's eyes. Not anger, something colder. "Noted, sir," she said quietly. 2 hours later, live training exercise, convoy operations in the South Field. Freya was assigned a safety observer, another non-combat role they'd stuck her in since her reassignment. She stood on the edge of the course, clipboard in hand, watching Humvees maneuver through simulated IED scenarios. Kaine was driving the lead vehicle, showing off, taking corners too fast. Then it happened. The right front tire hit a drainage ditch hidden by tall grass. The Humvee tilted hard and rolled onto its side with a sickening crunch of metal. Screams, chaos. Man down, man down! Freya was running before anyone else moved. By the time she reached the vehicle, a crowd had formed. Private Jenkins was trapped inside, his leg pinned beneath the collapsed doorframe. Blood was pooling. He was screaming. "Get the jack," someone yelled. "We need 3 men minimum to lift this." Kaine was on his radio, shouting for medical. Freya dropped to her knees, looked inside. Jenkins was going into shock. They had minutes, maybe less, before the internal bleeding became fatal. "Move," she said. Kaine turned. "What?" "Move, now." "Bergström, that's a 3,000-pound vehicle. You can't." She ignored him, positioned herself at the front quarter panel, planted her feet, slid her hands underneath the frame. "You're insane," said Kaine. "Stand down, that's an order." Freya closed her eyes.
The world disappeared. She wasn't at Fort Bragg anymore. She was back in Kandahar province, August 2018. The heat so thick you could taste it, the smell of burning fuel and copper blood. The IED had flipped their MRAP, 4 operators trapped inside, fire spreading, ammunition cooking off. Every second, another pop, another round igniting. Her team leader, Sergeant First Class David Kowalski, was pinned beneath the turret. His voice came through her headset, weak and crackling. "Atlas, we need a miracle." Freya had dropped to her knees, grabbed the wreckage, 8,000 pounds of armored vehicle, already burning. "I can't," she'd whispered. "You can," Kowalski had replied. "You're the strongest person I know, not just physically. You don't quit, ever." She'd lifted. Not because she was superhuman, not because of adrenaline or some Hollywood miracle. She'd lifted because failing meant watching her brothers burn alive. 47 seconds. That's how long she'd held it. Muscles tearing, vision going dark, spine compressing. But 47 seconds was enough. Kowalski crawled out, then Martinez, then Lee, then Bishop. All 4 made it. Freya collapsed the moment the last man cleared. Medics rushed her, severe muscle tears, 2 compressed vertebrae. The doctors said she'd never carry heavy gear again. They were wrong. Freya opened her eyes. Fort Bragg returned. The crowd, the Humvee, Jenkins screaming. Her hands were already under the frame. "On 3, she said quietly. Nobody heard her but Jenkins. 1, she exhaled, engaged her core, felt the weight distribution. 2, this was going to hurt, badly. Her back would scream, her shoulders would tear, but Jenkins would live. 3. The Humvee rose, 6 inches, then 8. The crowd went silent. Even Jenkins stopped screaming. 20 men stood frozen, mouths open, watching a 6'3" woman hold 3,000 pounds of vehicle off the ground with nothing but raw, brutal strength. "Get him out!" Freya roared. 2 soldiers snapped out of their shock and dove in, dragging Jenkins free. The moment he cleared, Freya released. The Humvee crashed back down. She staggered backward, fell to one knee, breathing hard, sweat pouring. But Jenkins was out, alive. The sound started as a low rumble. Not engines, rotor blades. A Black Hawk appeared over the tree line, descending fast. It landed 50 meters away, kicking up dust and grass. The side door opened. Colonel Patricia Reeves stepped out. 54 years old, silver hair pulled tight, chest full of ribbons from 2 decades of warfare, the kind of officer whose presence demanded silence. She walked directly to Freya, who was still kneeling, still catching her breath. Reeves stopped 3 feet away. Then she saluted, sharp, perfect, the kind of salute you give a superior or a legend. "Captain Freya Bergström, Delta Force Heavy Weapons Specialist, Operation Iron Thunder, Kandahar Province, August 2018. Every head turned. Kaine went pale. For those who don't know, Captain Bergström held a burning MRAP for 47 seconds while her team evacuated under enemy fire. She refused medical extraction until every operator was accounted for. She saved 4 lives that day. She turned to face Kaine directly. "Lieutenant, you called her a freak of nature. You said she wasn't a soldier. Let me clarify something. Captain Bergström has more combat hours than your entire battalion combined. She's qualified on every heavy weapons system in the U.S. inventory, and she's earned commendations I can't even name in public." Reeves looked back at Freya. "Atlas doesn't just hold up the sky, Lieutenant. She holds the line when everyone else breaks." Medics were loading Jenkins onto a stretcher. His leg was stabilized. He'd recover fully. Freya stood slowly, still breathing hard. Reeves approached her privately. "You were supposed to stay low profile." "I know, ma'am. Your orders were no heroics, no exposure." "Yes, ma'am." Reeves studied her. "But you'd do it again." "Every time, ma'am." "That's why you're Atlas. You don't know how to quit." Reeves turned to address the gathered soldiers. "This woman is being reassigned effective immediately. Where she's going, I can't say. What she'll do there, you'll never know. But if any of you ever doubt that women belong in combat roles, that they belong in any role, remember today." She paused for a moment. "Remember that the strongest warrior on this base wasn't the loudest, wasn't the most decorated, wasn't even a man. She was the one you ignored, the one you mocked, the one you underestimated." Reeves nodded once to Freya. "Good hunting, Captain." The Black Hawk lifted off. Fort Bragg Gym, 0530 hours. Lieutenant Marcus Kaine walked in. His uniform was wrinkled. His confidence was gone. Freya wasn't there anymore, but her picture was on the wall of honor near the entrance. A small plaque beneath it. "Captain Freya Bergström, Delta Force Heavy Weapons. When others fell, she stood. When the world pressed down, she lifted." Kaine stood in front of it for a long time. Then he turned and saw Private Torres on the bench press, struggling with his last rep. Kaine walked over. "Need a spot?" Torres looked up, surprised. Yeah, thanks, sir." Kaine positioned his hands near the bar. "You know what Captain Bergström taught me?" "What's that, sir?" "That strength isn't about how much you can lift. It's about who you're willing to carry." Torres completed his rep. Somewhere, thousands of miles away, in a place that didn't exist on any map, Freya Atlas Bergström was doing what she did best. Carrying the weight, holding the line, never quitting.